It was an early spring evening in a quiet Atlanta suburb, one of those neighborhoods where porches bloom with flower pots, wind chimes tinkle in the breeze, and the only sound louder than the birds is the occasional bark of a dog behind a fence. Dr. Alana Brooks, 34, had just finished a long shift at the local hospital. As a respected pediatrician and single mother, Alana was used to juggling responsibilities and expectations. But on this day she was unusually tired. She decided to walk the final few blocks home instead of calling a rideshare. It was a simple pleasure, a few moments of calm before returning to the chaos of dinner, homework, and bedtime stories with her daughter, Zuri. As she strolled through the neighborhood, still in her scrubs, white coat folded over one arm, she noticed a squad car slowing behind her. Then it stopped. "Ma'am, we've had reports of suspicious activity in this area," the officer said as he stepped out. His hand hovered near his holster. Alana blinked, confused. "I'm just walking home from work. I live 2 blocks that way. Can I see some ID?" She reached carefully into her bag, her hands visible the whole time. Another officer arrived. Then another. Within minutes, Alana was surrounded. Neighbors peeked through blinds. A jogger stopped, took out their phone and started filming. No crime had been committed. No description matched her. But still, she was detained, questioned, and told she was being uncooperative when she asked for the reason behind the stop. Her medical ID badge was ignored. Her address? Disbelieved. She was made to sit on the curb for 45 minutes before being released, without apology. Zuri, waiting at home, had called her grandmother in tears, asking why her mom hadn't come back yet. What could have been dismissed as a routine stop became something more. A rupture. Alana had spent her life breaking barriers, top of her class, med school with honors, saving children's lives daily, and yet here she was being treated like a threat for simply existing in her own skin. That night, something changed in her. She would not stay silent. The next morning, sunlight poured through the windows of Alana Brooks' kitchen, but it felt harsh, like an interrogation lamp rather than something warm or familiar. She sat at the table in her robe, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the otherwise silent house. Her phone buzzed non-stop beside her cup of coffee, which had long since gone cold. The video was already viral. Captured by the jogger who had paused to film her encounter with the police, the clip was only 2 minutes long, but that was enough. Enough to show Alana seated on the curb in her scrubs, her hospital badge visible, surrounded by 3 white officers who towered over her. Her tone was calm, almost too calm, like a person who knew from experience that anything louder might be considered a threat. She hadn't told her daughter Zuri what had happened yet. The 9-year-old had been asleep when she got home the night before, and Alana couldn't bring herself to wake her. How could she explain to a child that her mother, a doctor who saves lives every day, had been treated like a criminal for walking home? Alana opened her laptop and pulled up the City of Atlanta's Civilian Oversight Board portal. Her cursor hovered over the Submit a Complaint button for what felt like hours. Filing a complaint had always seemed pointless, like tossing your story into a black hole. She knew how the system worked. Reports went in, internal reviews happened in silence, and months later a letter would arrive saying, "We found no wrongdoing." But she wasn't invisible anymore. Not this time. The video was circulating on Twitter, Instagram, and local news feeds. Friends and colleagues had already started calling. Some were shocked. Some were furious. But many black friends weren't surprised at all. "This has happened to me too," one friend texted. "They stopped me outside my own office." Alana began typing. She detailed the date, time, and location of the stop. She described the officers, their words, their body language. She uploaded the video. She included a photograph of her ID badge and credentials, even though she knew none of it should have mattered. As she typed, anger built in her chest, not the explosive kind, but a cold, simmering fury. The kind born from a lifetime of subtle humiliations, being followed in stores, being asked if she was the assistant, being told she was so articulate. Now this, a public stop, a forced submission, and the haunting reality that it could have ended so much worse. When she hit submit, she felt no sense of relief, just a dull ache of defiance. Days later the response came. The officers acted within the boundaries of department protocol. The stop was lawful. No further action will be taken. No apology. No acknowledgement. No investigation. Alana stared at the message on her screen, heart pounding. She had seen this pattern play out before. A department circles its wagons, public attention fades, and the victim is left to pick up the pieces. But this time something different happened. Her inbox began filling with emails from journalists. One morning show requested an interview. An op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution called her a symbol of professional black women navigating everyday injustice. But one message stood out among the rest. It was from Deja Lambert, a renowned civil rights attorney based out of Washington, D.C., who had won several high-profile cases involving police misconduct and racial discrimination. Subject: Your case matters. Alana opened it. Dr. Brooks, I saw the footage and I read your statement. I believe you have grounds for a federal civil rights lawsuit. But more than that, you have a platform. If you're willing to fight, this case could set a precedent that changes how law enforcement handles racial profiling across the state, maybe even nationally. You are not alone. Let's talk. Deja Lambert. They spoke that night. Deja's voice was firm, calm, and practiced. She didn't make grand promises, but she laid out a path forward. The video was compelling. The department's dismissive response was damning. And most importantly, Alana was the kind of plaintiff lawyers dream of: intelligent, credible, articulate, and unwavering. But Deja also gave her a warning. This won't be easy. They'll try to paint you as angry, as unstable. They'll dig through your life looking for flaws. You'll be in headlines, in comment sections, and crosshairs. Are you ready for that? Alana paused. Then, with a steadiness that surprised even herself, she said, I've lived under a microscope my whole life. I didn't choose this fight, but I won't walk away from it. With that, the lawsuit was set in motion. Dr. Alana Brooks versus the City of Atlanta Police Department. The headline hit newsstands the next day. In the weeks that followed the filing of Dr. Alana Brooks v. the City of Atlanta Police Department, the air around her life shifted. Every conversation felt heavier. Every walk outside her home felt watched. Every patient she treated seemed to carry the silent question in their eyes. Are you okay? She smiled when she had to. But at night, alone in her room, she'd replay that moment on the curb, again and again. The gravel biting into her skin. The weight of 3 officers' gazes. The disorienting silence when she asked, why am I being stopped? Now, sitting in a glass-walled conference room in Deja Lambert's law office, she was beginning to understand. The moment she hit submit on that complaint, her life had become evidence. Deja paced slowly at the head of the table, her heels tapping rhythmically on the floor. She didn't speak like most lawyers Alana had met. No performative confidence, no rehearsed legalese. Her strength was in her clarity. Precision, not performance. This isn't just about a stop, she said. It's about pattern. It's about a system that treated your skin color as probable cause. The legal team filed Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) requests to the city, police precinct, and Office of Public Safety. Within 2 weeks, they were reviewing spreadsheets filled with names, dates, officer badge numbers, and vague descriptors like loitering, matching description, or worse, just suspicious behavior. The findings were damning. 61% of the stops in that district targeted black residents. Fewer than 5% resulted in citations or arrests. Less than 1% had body cam footage reviewed afterward. An Alana stop? Not even logged correctly. It was listed as a routine interaction. No mention of the officers drawing suspicion, no report filed. They tried to erase the moment, until the video made that impossible. Deja turned the laptop toward Alana. You didn't just disrupt a moment, Dr. Brooks. You disrupted a whole machine that was built to protect itself. What came next was harder. Alana sat for 2 days of depositions and psychological evaluations. Every detail of her life was picked apart. Her medical records, her school records, her social media, her finances. The defense tried to imply she was using the incident for attention, citing interviews and appearances as self-promotion. But Deja's team countered with stories. They collected testimonies from colleagues, hospital administrators, parents of children she had saved. A mother tearfully recounted how Alana had stayed late after a shift just to help diagnose her child's rare illness. Another parent called her a guardian angel in a white coat. Why, Deja asked during a pre-hearing, would someone with this kind of reputation fabricate injustice? Is it more plausible that a successful black woman is lying, or that she was treated like a suspect in her own neighborhood, just like millions of others across this country have been? It wasn't just about Alana anymore. As her case drew media attention, others came forward, quietly at first, then louder. A 62-year-old black veteran detained outside a VFW post for acting erratic while waiting for his lift. A 14-year-old girl stopped walking home from basketball practice because a neighbor thought she was scoping houses. A local black teacher pulled over 3 times in a month and asked if he really lived around here. The law firm compiled 23 affidavits, each one a thread in the same tapestry of systemic suspicion and humiliation. The backlash came as it always does. The police union released a statement accusing Alana of discrediting hard-working officers for personal gain. An anonymous article circulated online claiming she had once failed a medical exam, false. She began receiving hate mail. One message included a photo of her house. Hospital administrators offered her a leave of absence for her own safety. Alana refused. "I show up for my patients," she told them, "and I'm going to keep showing up for this too." Zuri, her daughter, had more questions now. "Mom, are the police going to hurt you again?" she asked one night. Alana held her close and promised, "No, baby. Mommy is fighting so they can't hurt anyone else." Deja warned her, "This trial will be ugly. They'll try to chip away at you until you're no longer a doctor or a mother or a human being in their eyes, just a target. But they won't win. Not this time." A week before the trial was set to begin, an internal email from the police department was leaked to the press. The message, sent by a supervisor, encouraged officers to remain proactive in community patrols even if it results in friction. In a separate thread, one of the officers who stopped Alana joked, "Maybe she'll think twice before walking through our neighborhood again." That was the moment public opinion began to shift hard. Protests formed outside City Hall. Medical professionals rallied online in support of Alana using the hashtag #ScrubsNotSuspicion. The National Medical Association released a statement calling racial profiling of black doctors a stain on the nation's moral conscience. Suddenly, this wasn't just a civil rights case. It was a referendum. On over-policing. On credibility. On the silent indignities endured by people of color in everyday life. And Alana? She was no longer just a witness to her own trauma. She was the face of resistance against it. The courthouse steps buzzed with reporters. Morning light caught the flashes of cameras as journalists elbowed each other for a clear view of Dr. Alana Brooks. She stepped out of the car with her attorney, Deja Lambert, flanked by supporters wearing pins that read, "We walk, we heal, we belong." It was the first day of the most significant racial profiling case in Georgia's recent history. Inside the courtroom, the stakes felt as real as the breath in Alana's lungs. She scanned the gallery. On one side, hospital co-workers who had taken time off to be here. Parents of her former patients. Community leaders. On the other, uniformed officers, cold-faced, arms folded, seated just behind the city's legal counsel. The room hushed as Judge Marlene Keller entered. Her gavel hit the bench with a single, firm knock. Court is now in session. The city's attorney was smooth and seasoned, a man used to bending truth into safety nets. "This is a case of unfortunate perception," he said to the jury. "Not discrimination. Not brutality. Not misconduct. Our officers had cause. The plaintiff misread caution as bias." She turned a responsible stop into a political narrative. He gestured to the jury, most of whom sat motionless, guarded. The plaintiff was questioned, not harmed. And now she seeks damages, reputation, and media attention under the guise of justice. It was surgical. It was dismissive. Then Deja stood. She waited 3 full seconds before speaking. Silence was her weapon and she wielded it well. "There is no misreading the trauma of being singled out because of your skin. This isn't a story about bruises, it's about invisible wounds. The kind that never show up in police reports, but live in the mind, body, and soul long after the encounter ends." Her eyes moved from jurors to the judge to the gallery. Dr. Alana Brooks has saved lives, delivered babies, performed surgeries under pressure. But one night, walking home in scrubs, she became a threat, not because of her actions but because of her presence. She closed her binder gently. This trial will show you what happens when a person's identity outweighs their humanity in the eyes of law enforcement. Alana took the stand first. She wore a navy suit. No makeup. No jewelry. Just her voice and her memory. "I was 3 blocks from my house," she began. "I just finished an emergency C-section. My hands still smelled like antiseptic. And then I noticed the headlights behind me." She described the moment the police cruiser rolled up beside her. The officer's tone. The way his hand hovered over his holster even as he asked, "Do you live here?" "I told them I was a doctor," she said, her voice firm. "They told me to sit on the curb." The room was silent. Even the clicking pen stopped. I sat down. I answered every question. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. And still, I felt one wrong breath away from death. Her hands trembled slightly. She clasped them together. I have worked 14 years to become the doctor I am. In those 14 minutes on that curb, none of it mattered. Then came the video. The court watched the grainy footage from the jogger's phone. The officers questioning her, their posture tense, their refusal to acknowledge her badge clipped to her waistband. The murmurs began before the screen even went black. Deja called expert after expert. A data analyst showed charts pulled from the department's own records. Black residents were 5 times more likely to be stopped than white residents. Stops involving black residents were twice as likely to be undocumented or improperly logged. Officers involved in Alana's stop had no body cam footage, a violation of protocol. Then the city's own former training officer took the stand. She was white, retired, and visibly uncomfortable. But her words rang loud. Officers in that district are informally encouraged to be more aggressive in certain areas. They don't say it's about race, but we all know what that means. Deja raised a brow. So these stops aren't based solely on behavior? The woman shook her head slowly. Not always. Sometimes it's about who you are. The city scrambled. They called character witnesses to paint the officers as dedicated professionals. They highlighted Alana's media appearances, suggesting she was enjoying the attention. One defense lawyer even read a tweet she had written months before: "Being black and excellent is still not enough to be safe in this country." "Does this sound like someone objective?" he asked the jury. Deja objected. Sustained. But the seed of doubt was their tactic. They brought up Alana's divorce, suggesting emotional instability. They questioned why she didn't file the complaint the next day. They implied that if she were really traumatized, she wouldn't have waited. Each insinuation cut. But Alana sat tall. This wasn't just her fight anymore. Then came the turning point. An anonymous whistleblower, identified only as Officer D, testified behind a screen, voice altered, face obscured. "There's an internal directive we call eyes on the unfamiliar," he said. "It's unofficial, but real. And it targets black professionals who don't look like they belong." He cited multiple examples. Provided internal memos. One written by a commanding officer included the line, "Optic in break-ins means you profile first, apologize later." The room erupted. Gasp. Murmurs. Shouts from the gallery. The judge pounded the gavel for order. But the damage had been done, to the defense. The jury had heard what it needed to hear. Each day the protest outside grew. People of all races and backgrounds held candles at dusk. "We walk with Alana," they chanted. Her story had pierced the walls of the courtroom and poured into the streets. A group of medical students wrote an open letter to the city, signed by over 12,000 doctors nationwide. "We cannot heal a system that still sees black skin as a threat. We demand better." Alana read it in her hotel room and wept quietly. Not out of pain, but because, for the first time in weeks, she felt seen. The courtroom was still as glass. Not a whisper, not a shuffle of shoes or papers, just the strained silence of collective anticipation. The air was thick with the tension of history, like something sacred, or dangerous, was about to be decided. Alana sat rigid, her heart pounding in her ears, her palms damp with sweat. Beside her, attorney Deja Lambert exhaled slowly, her eyes trained on the jury as they re-entered the room. 12 people, men and women from all walks of life, held in their hands not just a verdict but a symbol. A judgment that would ripple far beyond this courtroom and this moment. They took their seats. The foreperson, a retired school principal named Ernest Dawes, held the verdict sheet with hands that trembled slightly. His lips were tight, his eyes red. The bailiff took the paper, walked it to the judge. Judge Keller scanned it, her brow lifted slightly. She looked over her glasses, nodded once, and passed it back to the clerk to read aloud. The words felt slow, suspended in air like raindrops frozen mid-fall. In the matter of Dr. Alana Brooks versus the City of Atlanta and the Atlanta Police Department, on the charge of civil rights violation through racial profiling and unlawful detainment, we, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff. The room didn't erupt. Not at first. It gasped. And then, like thunder chasing lightning, came the swell, sobs, applause, muffled shouts of relief and disbelief. Supporters in the gallery stood. Reporters scrambled to send live updates. The sound of justice being witnessed rose like a storm outside the courthouse walls. Alana didn't move. Not at first. She sat still, stunned, as the judge pounded the gavel and called for order. Her mother gripped her hand so tightly it hurt. Deja leaned close, whispering with a shaking smile, "We did it, Alana. You did it." Tears brimmed in Alana's eyes but didn't fall. Not yet. Then the clerk continued. The jury awards the plaintiff damages in the amount of $2.5 million, with a determination of systemic and institutional negligence on the part of the defendants. But it wasn't about the money. It was the second clause that meant everything. Systemic and institutional negligence. The courtroom erupted again. This time it wasn't just for Alana. It was for every person whose silent pain had never reached a courtroom, every unjustified stop, every dismissed complaint, every, "I'm sorry ma'am, but you fit the description." It was validation. And it was a warning. Hours later, Alana stood before a sea of microphones, camera lenses, and reporters who had flown in from across the country. She was flanked by Deja, her legal team, and several members of the community who had supported her from the beginning. "I want to be clear," she began, her voice steady despite the flashes and noise. "This verdict does not erase what happened to me. It does not undo the fear I felt that night, or the years of moments like it before." Her voice cracked just slightly. "I filed this lawsuit not for vengeance but for visibility. Because I was tired of watching stories like mine disappear behind headlines that read, 'Mistaken Identity,' or 'Routine Stop.'" She paused. "Let that settle. For anyone watching this who has been followed in a store, stopped for walking while black, or questioned for just existing, I see you. This is for you." Then came the words that would later appear on protest signs, in think pieces, and on murals. "Being black in public is not probable cause. It never was. It never will be." The ruling made headlines across the U.S. Dr. Wynn's historic bias case, New York Times. $2.5 million verdict in Atlanta. Is this a turning point for police accountability? The Atlantic. Justice for Dr. Brooks. What it means for black professionals in America, NPR. The case was covered by every major network. Talk shows discussed it. Influencers posted tributes. Civil rights lawyers began citing it in their briefs. At Morehouse and Spelman, professors used it in criminal justice lectures. The Department of Justice opened a formal inquiry into the Atlanta Police Department's traffic stop patterns. By the end of the month, 3 major cities, including Baltimore and St. Louis, launched independent audits of their own patrol practices. The tremor had become a quake. The hospital where Alana had spent a decade of her life healing others transformed into a sanctuary of support. Colleagues decorated her locker with notes that read, "Proud of you. Welcome back, warrior. You spoke for all of us." Nurses embraced her in the halls. Patients asked to take pictures. A young intern handed her a stethoscope with her name etched in gold, Dr. Brooks, MD, and Justice too. Hospital administration issued a new anti-bias protocol for staff and collaborated with Deja Lambert's foundation to host training workshops for nearby clinics and ERs. Alana returned to her surgical unit with more gravity than ever before, not just as a physician but as a figure of resistance and resilience. But it wasn't all applause. Threatening emails poured in. Online hate swelled. Her home address was leaked on a forum. At night, she sometimes heard phantom footsteps outside her door. One morning, a brick was thrown through her front window with a note taped to it. "You got lucky. Next time, don't run your mouth." She refused to be intimidated. But she installed cameras, changed her daughter's school route, and began attending therapy weekly, not just for herself but for Zuri, whose drawings had started including police cars and frowns. Not all wounds bleed. And not all warriors wear armor. In the quiet of her kitchen, late at night, Alana stood by the sink, sipping tea, staring out at her backyard. Her mother joined her. "You did good, baby," she said softly. Alana nodded. "But I'm still tired." Her mother wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "Rest. But don't you ever shrink. Not now. Not after this." She looked at her daughter, then said, "You didn't just change the system. You made space. For all the girls like you coming behind." Alana looked down at her hands, the same ones they had forced to rest on her knees that night on the curb. The same hands that had brought life into the world, that now had helped bring light into a broken one. "I just wanted to live," she whispered. Her mother smiled. "You did more than that. You rose." A year had passed since the verdict. 12 months of interviews, keynote speeches, policy reforms, and emotional reckonings. But for Dr. Alana Brooks, legacy was never about headlines. It was about what came next. 6 months after the trial, Alana launched the Zuri Justice Initiative, named after her daughter. The nonprofit focused on providing legal aid, mental health services, and public advocacy for black professionals who had experienced racial discrimination in their workplaces or communities. Its first project, a national database tracking racial profiling complaints, compiled, verified, and published quarterly. Its second, a scholarship program for black medical students, funded in part by the damages she'd won. "Too many of us carry trauma in silence," she said at the launch event, "because we're too busy surviving to fight back. This foundation is here to say you're not alone. And you never were." Zuri stood proudly at her side that day, wearing a small t-shirt with bold letters. "My MOM is a hero." The case sparked a wave of storytelling. Podcasts dissected the trial in multi-part episodes. Documentaries followed, including a Netflix special titled Profiled, The Alana Brooks Story, which debuted at Sundance to critical acclaim. In classrooms across the country, her story was taught alongside the names of civil rights figures past and present. But the most powerful shift didn't happen on screen. It happened in the quiet ways people began speaking up, in HR offices, in student unions, in police precincts. Doctors, teachers, engineers, janitors, people of all backgrounds, began saying the word out loud. Discrimination. And something that had once felt invisible became undeniable. 2 more officers from the Atlanta Police Department were quietly dismissed months after the ruling. Internal audits revealed years of ignored complaints, patterns of biased stops, and falsified reporting. In response, the city appointed its first-ever civilian oversight commissioner with real subpoena power. Other cities followed suit. Federal lawmakers reintroduced stalled legislation under the new banner, the Brooks Act, aimed at eliminating qualified immunity in civil rights cases. Slowly, too slowly for some, the gears of change began to turn. Alana never claimed her case fixed the system. It hadn't. But it had exposed something raw, undeniable, and long overdue for confrontation. One evening, a letter arrived in her mailbox. It was handwritten in careful cursive, with no return address. "Dr. Brooks, I watched your testimony. I'm not black, but I'm a nurse and I've been silent too long. You gave me courage. I'm filing a complaint tomorrow against the director who harassed me for years. Thank you. Thank you for not backing down." Another letter came the next week. Then another. Each one a story. Each one a piece of a collective wound slowly beginning to heal. Alana kept every letter in a wooden box on her nightstand. On the hard days she opened it. She read their names, their hopes, their bravery. It reminded her that justice wasn't a moment, it was a movement. One morning, as Alana braided Zuri's hair before school, her daughter asked, "Do you think I'll have to fight the same fight you did?" Alana paused. "I hope not," she said softly. "But if you do, you'll never have to do it alone." Zuri smiled. "Maybe I'll be a lawyer like Andy Deja. Or a doctor like me," Alana replied, smiling back. "Or maybe something the world hasn't even made space for yet." Zuri nodded. "I'll make the space." In the years to come, people would debate what made Alana Brooks' case so historic. Some would say it was the money. Others, the precedent. But those who lived through it knew the truth. It was the moment someone refused to be erased. A black woman stood before power, not in anger, not in rage, but in truth. She spoke and the world was forced to listen. Her story became a torch passed from hand to hand, from protester to parent, from student to survivor. A reminder that courage is contagious. And that legacy isn't about what you leave behind. It's about what you ignite in others. Alana Brooks' story isn't just about one courtroom victory, it's about the thousands of voices that go unheard every single day. If her courage moved you, don't let it stop here. Share this video to keep the conversation going. Comment below if you or someone you know has experienced injustice. We see you, we hear you. Subscribe for more stories that expose the truth, uplift the unheard, and demand accountability. Justice is not a moment, it's a movement. Be part of it.